accepted the responsibility to protect.
On atrocity prevention.
Words kill.
All societies are potentially vulnerable.
Atrocity crimes.
Timely and appropriate action.
Welcome to Expert Voices on Atrocity Prevention by the Global Center for the Responsibility to Protect. I'm Jacqueline Streifeld Hall, Director of Policy and Research at the Global Center. This podcast features one-on-one conversations with practitioners from the fields of human rights, conflict prevention, and atrocity prevention. These conversations will give us a glimpse of the personal and professional side of how practitioners approach human rights protection and atrocity prevention, allowing us to explore challenges, identify best practices, and share lessons learned on how we can protect populations more effectively. Today I'm joined by Pascale Solages, a renowned Haitian grassroots feminist organizer and human rights advocate, as well as a founding member and general coordinator of Nègès Mawon, one of Haiti's most active feminist organizations. Thank you for joining us today, Pascale.
Thank you for the invitation, and I'm so happy to be there. Thank you.
Pascale, can you tell us a bit about your background in Haitian feminism and human rights advocacy? What inspired you to found your organization, and how has its mission evolved in today's crisis context?
In 2008, I met with Nadine Louis and other people leading a women's organization in Haiti, Fondation Toya. And I became a member of this organization. And, I started educate myself, working in communities, trying to understand better women rights, human rights, and all, the interconnected relationship between the rights of women and all the oppression we all live in as Asian women, but also Black women. So since 2008, since my journey with Fondation Toya, I left Haiti to have a certificate in gender and development in Belgium, and I went back in Haiti, and I start working at Fondation Toya as a program manager. And since this moment, it was important for me to continue to work and to continue to advocate for women's rights in Haiti. But in 2015, I felt the need to create another space, a space where I can express myself as an activist, as a creator, in other ways. And the first idea was to create a festival feminist in Haiti. It was to create a space where I can use art and activism. At this moment, I was working with television in my country, with many media in my country, and I wanted to have the opportunity to do my activism in a different way, artistic way, creative way, and to also talk and work about other issues that were important for me at this period, not necessarily issues where I can found in Fondation Toya at this period. So at this moment, I decided to create Nègès Mawon, and to have this feminist festival in Haiti in 2016, the first edition. And after that, ideas after ideas, project after project. So with a friend, Gael Bien-Aimé, we decided to continue create project in this organization with a very innovative vision, doing things differently with different people, with different communities, talking about different kind of issue, because we were so young at this period, and so many issues weren't priorities for the other organizations. So yeah, and also I think it's a personal journey. Also, I'm a survivor of sexual violence. I saw really early in my life violence in my home with my mom, my dad, and friends and everything. But also all the violent context in my country. I think it was also a personal call to find a place to do something, to act, to fight, to talk, to speak, to advocate. So I think all of this, my personal journey, and this need also to express myself in different ways, were the reason I decided to create, to build this new organization, Nègès Mawon, in 2015.
That's an incredible path, even if, it's the twists and turns kind of brought you to maybe a different place than what you originally envisioned, but still an incredible opportunity to advocate for yourself, for your family, for your community, and others. And I know you've briefed the UN in many different forums on what's happening in Haiti. Since February 2024, we've seen a sharp deterioration in the human rights situation, with populations enduring likely crimes against humanity due to widespread violence perpetrated by gangs to terrorize and control communities. Can you describe what's happening on the ground, particularly for women, girls, and other vulnerable groups?
As you said, there is a really big crisis in Haiti, a multidimensional crisis, because there is the political aspect, the economic aspect, the social aspect. But I think the security aspect is really an important one, because we are seeing now all the control of territories by gangs, all the killings by gangs, all the violence by gangs, and the lack of response and real action to fight this kind of situation. By example, for now, we have more than 1.3 million of displaced people in Haiti, and more than half of this number are women and girls. We have, so many territories controlled by gang, people forced to flee their communities, their homes, people killed by the gangs. But in this context, what we are seeing also is uh, the sexual violence as a weapon in this context, because the gangs are using sexual violence, to oppress, to kill, to destroy women and girls in this context. Yes, you have all the violence, the killings. It's thousands of people already killed for only the first 6 months of the year. But yes, we have displaced people. Yes, we have people killed. We have the kidnappings. We have, all this kind of violence. But the sexual violence, all kind of violence actually against women and girls, but also these aspects, specifically the sexual violence, the rapes, the gangs rapes, the collective rapes, is really a really hard aspect of the crisis now. And we know that in this kind of context, this kind of situation, women and girls women and children are the first victims of this kind of crisis in the world, political crisis, and all the kind of crisis. So this is the result of this crisis in the country now. So it's thousands of rape, women rape, girl rapes, but also unwanted pregnancies, women infected by, all kind of disease, displaced women. And in this kind of situation, when they are displaced, they are more vulnerable to violence and all kind of situation in the country, because they are poor, they don't have place to go, they don't have place to hide, they don't have, people to protect them and to defend their rights. And also what we can see is the lack of services they have access in this kind of situation. Today, having access to health, having access to security, having access to homes, having access, all kind of services, it's really difficult for women and girls in this country. So what we are seeing is that the right of women to have this kind of, services, but also the rights globally, in this situation, it's really, what we can see is they are losing it day after day, and they are in danger in their communities, but also in the camps where they try to find, safety, because we are receiving women and girls victims of violence in the camps, in the streets, when they are trying to flee the communities, when they are trying to flee the control of the gangs. In the same space, they think they can find, a sense of safety. They are also facing violence in this kind of camps and other, shelters or spaces after they have to flee their homes. So also the economic aspect, because women can have really resources and economic activities in this crisis, and we have a big inflation in the country also. So women in Haiti were already struggling with, economic vulnerability, but with this situation, it's worse. The social aspect, I talk about that, the access to services, access to their right, the access to leadership also, because we talk about the fact that with this kind of violence, women are, first target and first victim when they try to be involved in politics or in leadership spaces to try to resolve the crisis in the country. So, but also we can see all the migration aspect of the problem. We can see what happened to women in Dominican Republic, pregnant women in Dominican Republic, women in other kind of country trying to find other places where they can be safe, where they can be free, where they can find, best living condition. So they are interconnected. All these situations are the result of the political crisis. And now they are talking about election. They are talking about, we have a new president with the Presidential Council, Laurent Saint-Cyr now, but we didn't see results for women and girls with this transition, unfortunately. And with all the work of the international community, but also the local organization, the civil society, unfortunately, it's not enough to, give to the women and girls in Haiti what they need to feel safe, to feel free, and, to live in better conditions.
Since you mentioned the political crisis and a lot of these sort of systemic issues, can you give a brief overview for anyone who's maybe not familiar with Haiti of, what key events and systemic issues led to this crisis point? Because obviously the rise in gang violence
Mhm.
is the reason women are being targeted now, but there was kind of a path towards that moment.
So historically, we saw so many crises in Haiti, political crisis. Maybe we can talk about the period of dictatorship of Jean-Claude Duvalier, and after this terrible period of dictatorship, we saw political crisis after political crisis. But also government without the will to really change the situation in Haiti, but also a big influence of the international actors, of the international community, of some country like the US, Canada, France, and other ones with big influence in politics in Haiti, doing um, a kind of action and politics that don't work for the Asian populations. So all the decision, political decision, but also economic decision during the dictatorship period, but also after the dictatorship period. But we can go also, before the dictatorship period, it was decision after decision, action after action, influence of actors that create this kind of context, this kind of country. Also, after the dictatorship, we can talk maybe about the period of Lavalas with President Aristide. We can talk about the period with President Rival. We can talk about all this period with the PHTK group, has Michel Martelly, Jovenel Moïse, and everything. So the action of political actors, but also action of economic actors against the well-being of the Asian population, are the reasons of this crisis today. But it's also a lot of corruption, a lot of impunity, a lot of institutional weakness, a lot of bad governance and bad decision, but also the lack of listening of the population and what this population need and what this population ask. So we can consider maybe so many actors, as I said, political, economic, but also the international actor. We have to remind people that yes, it's a responsibility of local actors, of national actors in the country, but with big influence of the international actors, especially the US in Haiti, that led to this crisis today. We can consider, by example, the period after the earthquake. We can consider the period of, the scandal of Petrocaribe. We can talk about so many time where the international community forced the national actors and institution to take action or decision against the population. And today we can see the result. But we have to remember also that Haiti is a country that was colonized in the past. And after the colonization, we have also all this period of oppression by other countries, especially France, when you consider, for example, the independence debt in the country, with real economic impacts on a new nation, on a new country. And today we are paying this, the consequences of also this independence debt today in the country. This is why it's a conversation today. When you are an activist, I was in the Security Council and I was asking about reparation for this debt because it was a big, big factor in the economic failure of this country, of this new nation, because we were colonized, especially by France. So I think people have to learn about this country, learn what happened in this country. And as I said, it's really important for me that we recognize that it's a national responsibility. We are the first one with the responsibility of what we are living today as a country. But we have to remember also that we are not alone. We were not alone to create this context, this crisis, this specific one, but also all the crises we saw in the past.
Absolutely. And, I'm glad you brought up the lack of listening,
Mhm.
because I think that's so key to how many crises evolve. And you've talked already about the access to services and leadership, the lack of listening, and I
Mhm.
know Haitian civil society organizations like yours have often stepped in to fill the gaps left by the government, kind of taking on those service delivery roles. But you're also playing a kind of key part in policy planning, agenda setting, mobilizing around critical issues. One powerful example of this is your involvement in the development of the policy framework for an effective and equitable transition. Can you explain what this policy framework is, and how civil society came together to create it, and maybe what some of its recommendations are?
Since day one, when we create this organization, we were clear. We didn't want to be an organization or only doing, some small programs, small project in communities. We understood that changing condition of living of people is to influence, institutions, to influence policies, to influence all kind of actors, to denounce and to do all this kind of work, but also to propose you know and as feminists, we have a vision of the society we want to live in. We have a vision of the country we want to see. We have a vision of the country we want for women and girls in Haiti, but also globally. We have a vision of the world we want to see as feminists, as women, but also as Black women. So a part of our work was always to influence, to denounce, but also to propose to the actors and to give this contribution for what we want to see as society, as world. And unfortunately, they failed us. They failed us again and again because national actors, international actors, institutions, individuals, they are not listening. They are not, they don't have the, they don't understand that they can create the solution without the people needed that need who need the solution. We need to be part of it. We need to be part of the people saying what we want, what we need. And we are saying every day that we don't want anything for us without us. And we are doing our work, we are doing our part. And the policy framework, the feminist policy framework, was months of work with you know, incredible feminists, incredible UN wide activists, incredible institution to try to influence this transition. Because Nègès Mawon was an organization um, trying to work for this transition in the Accord Montana. So we were part of that. We were trying to build this transition, to propose the kind of transition we wanted to see after the assassination of Jovenel Moïse and before the assassination of Jovenel Moïse. So when we worked with Accord Montana, yes, we were activists working with all kind of people and institutions. But after that, it was important for us to have a feminist perspective on this transition and to impose a feminist agenda to this transition, because it's always like, you know, by example, we can talk about, you know, the independence struggle. We were there fighting and everything, fighting for this new nation. But after that, after 1804, uh, you know, the women didn't have the right to vote in this new country, by example. So in April 3rd, 1986, when, you know, women feminists decide to march in Port-au-Prince saying that this is democracy now and we don't want a democracy without women, we understand this struggle at this time, you know, and this is the same one today. So we decide that we want to influence this transition and to put a feminist agenda on this transition. And we work on this policy. We worked, by example, I have to say thank you, by example, to Sasha from IGDH. We worked for months on this document, and we advocate to other people, other organizations, other feminists in the world, asking them to endorse this document, saying that this is what we want to see for women and girls during this transition. And after that, we met with, you know, prime minister, we met with all kind of political actors, we met with international actors to say that, can you do that in this transition? This is our recommendation for the transition. This is what women and girls need during this transition, and you can also use it after the transition. So yeah, so it was important for us to propose something, not to be there waiting for what they want to do for us, what they want to propose for us, saying that, yeah, we are here and we know what we are living and we know what can be the solution for it. So this is a document that can help you. And it was a beautiful adventure, actually, you know, doing all the brainstorming, talking to each other, sharing ideas, sharing vision, but also asking for people to understand this vision and to share it after. It was a beautiful initiative. And it was one of them. A few years ago, we had this letter, this call for action, feminist action, and we had, you know, hundreds of organizations and feminist activists in the world endorsing also this letter a few years ago. So we always had the support of, you know, global organization, and we were so grateful. And yeah, this feminist framework, we publish a letter to Laurent Saint-Cyr, the new, you know, president of this transition, to say that, yeah, this is the policy framework. You can use it during this transition, blah, blah, blah. But unfortunately for now, we didn't see any follow-up, any result, any will to use this document, to use this tool to improve the transition and to improve also the condition of women and girls in this country. So
Well, I hope it's at some point they start taking on your ideas. I really, it's very inspiring and powerful, this kind of women uplifting women around the world that you've just described. And, you know, we've seen it time and again working on atrocity situations that there's so much, even though your contexts are at times very different, there's so much commonality and so much that can come from having that shared voice together.
okay, no. Yeah, as I said, not only for this initiative, but in so many moments, Asian feminists receive full support, you know, from other organization, other feminist activists, other human rights activists, and working as a feminist in Haiti, being a feminist in Haiti is literally life or death work. Not when you are doing only some small project or small, yes, this is important. But when you are doing the political work, when you are denouncing corruption, when you are denouncing the impunity, when you are denouncing the individuals killing women or having link with people killing women, when we are denouncing the political actors, when you're denouncing the economic actors, when you are putting light on so many cases of corruption and violence in the country, it can be really dangerous for you as an activist, but also as a feminist activist. So the support and the solidarity we received is a way to protect ourselves also. My personal experience when I had to flee Haiti a few years ago, when I arrived here in the US, it was a call from a feminist friend here saying, Pascale is here in this country now. She's alone. She has nothing. We need help for her. We need a house for her. We need a place where she can be safe and think about the next step. We need help for a family in Haiti. We need help for a colleague in Haiti. And for months, I was here in the US in a house paid by feminist activists in the US. We had support from my colleagues in Haiti. They had to hide in other regions, live in Port-au-Prince. We received support for them, using helicopters for them. At a moment, they were in Dominican Republic because they had to flee, and she didn't have US visa or other kind of visa, but she had the access to go in Dominican Republic. So I received support from feminist friends and feminist activists for my little brother when they attacked my family. So I think I don't think I know, and it my personal experience that feminist activists saved my life. The sorority I received from feminists all over the world saved my life, saved my family's life, and saved my colleagues' lives. So it gives me also sometimes to think, to hear, to heal, and to organize myself in a new country. Because of this support, I took the time to cry, to think about what I was doing because I had to flee, to think about what I can do for my little brother in the new country. And today, my little brother continues to receive support from feminist friends in Dominican Republic. So in Canada, we received some support. My colleague was in France. She has to stay for a few months more because she couldn't return in Port-au-Prince. So she received also support there. So feminist support always saved my life. It's a personal experience, and I will say it, every day. And I can say that this support is not only on paper, it's not only by endorsing documents, it's not only by writing policies, it's not only in big events, doing beautiful pictures, being on social media, beautiful, it's not only that. It's a personal experience living this sorority, and it's a personal experience in a different way, in so many ways, and I'm so grateful. And I will always advocate for having this kind of sorority globally with other countries, with other women everywhere in the world, because we are doing a dangerous work. We are trying to destroy systems, and we need safety from, each other to survive this kind of work we are doing every day.
You mentioned that you have the policy framework, but they haven't taken on
Mhm,
some of your recommendations yet.
mhm,
But there have been recent decrees creating two specialized judicial units, including one focused on mass crimes,
mhm,
which seems like a step forward. But as you just said, you're trying to really change systems, not just
mhm.
create units that's fix things piecemeal. What structural changes are truly needed to address the endemic sexual violence and impunity? And how do you see this moment of crisis as an opportunity to be transformational for women's rights in Haiti?
What we need for that for the structural change, systemic change, is to transform words, documents, in actions. AD signs so many documents. We create, we have so many plans, but the challenge is when we have to transform all this discourse, all these documents to actions and resources into the institution to have real change. We have, by example, the Ministry of Women's Rights today. We have, other kind of institution that can help with, this fight for women's rights, for women's safety, for women's autonomy, etc. But we need a government, we need actors who really want to fight and to act for this change. And this is why in the past years, Nègès Mawon has to denounce the lack of action, by example, of the Ministry of Women's Rights. Because when you have a government, this ministry can do all the work by itself. So we need a government with a vision for women's and right, and this government will give the resources and the power to this ministry to really act for women and girls. In Haiti, by example, this ministry has less than 1% of the national budget. Do you imagine? In this kind of context, the last report we had, all the money arriving in Haiti, for now, we have only 10% of all this money fighting for gender-based violence in this kind of situation. So today, the feminist organization, the local organization, as you said, has to, filling the gap left by the institution like Ministry of Women's Rights because they are not doing the work. It's so many corruption, so many impunity, but also there is not a will to really, work for women and girls. So it's the first thing we need. We need people in place with the vision to act for women and girls. Because you can have the policy framework. You can have all this, Belem do Para, all kind of international documents. But if you don't have people in place who will do the work, actually, who will advocate, who will do pressure, because we need pressure. How can we have only 10% of the budget for gender-based violence in this kind of situation? Who can say the truth? Who can really be in place and tell the truth to people and to fight for it? And we can see the change. Unfortunately, by example, in the new presidential council, we have only one woman in the presidential council, and she can vote. So she's there to observe, and she's not even observing, she's not even observing because for all the period of the transitional council, she didn't say anything. She did nothing. And she's the only woman in the presidential council. We have less of the 30% in the government of Didier Alex Didier Fils-Aimé. It's in the constitution. Each place we're supposed to have a minimum of 30% of women in place of leadership. The government of Didier Fils-Aimé is less than 30%. And unfortunately, the women in this government, you don't see, all this, all the action we need to see to push for Asian women and girls, but also the international community. It's so beautiful, the narrative about women and girls, in big places, big event, big consortium, big blah, 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 blah. But when it's time to take real action, when it's time to support the institution, when it's time to really advocate for what they are saying are priorities, we don't see no one. By example, we can take the example of the MMS, the multinational force in the country, when they decide to take this security decision for Haiti, we said that Asian women and girls, we have experiences with peacekeeper mission. We have experiences with this kind of military solution. And what we are living now as women and girls in this country, it can be a solution for us. It can be a solution for Asian women and girls. And we are the first victim of this insecurity. And more than 1 year after, we can see the result. More territories controlled, more women killed, more women raped, more blah blah blah, more everything. And it's a lot of money that we could spend in real solution for women and girls in the country. So we need to put the pressure where the policy, the action, the solution are discussed in those women, try to influence that. Yes, we can continue to act in the communities. We will continue to do work as civil society. We'll continue to work as feminist organization. We'll continue to help the women because they need that. We are literally in the community daily to help them survive the other day. Now we are receiving so many women from Plateau Central. Before it was for, from Port-au-Prince, the West Department, but now from Sodo, from Miambale, from other region in the country because gangs are trying, to keep control of those communities also. Now we are receiving so many women from other departments of the country, and we don't have the kind of resources to do this kind of work. Maison Claire can only receive 30 women at the same time for 4 months. We don't have this kind of resources. So we need people who will really do the work to change the living conditions. So we will stop doing this work of surviving every day because it's also a trap. Doing the work of surviving every day keep us from doing the work of advocating for the future, for policies, because we have to survive. So many people in Nègès Mawon are displaced people. They are helping women survivors, but they are also survivors. So when you are in this kind of trap, this kind of situation, it's really difficult to be focused on policies, blah 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 blah. Even the women you try to help, we had a group a few weeks ago saying, they are talking about elections, so you are here. We have to discuss about you, about election constitution, and they are there. We don't have nothing to eat. We have children starving in the camps. So we are not interested about talking about elections. And you can understand that. You can understand the situation. So yeah, it's a trap, and it's really hard when people are not seeing that what we need to do now is really the systemic work, the policy work, the political work, the all kind of work. Yes, the humanitarian aspect is really important because people need help. Women and girls need help. So the humanitarian, the emergency aspect, the response aspect, it's really important. But we have to create situation where we don't have to work on emergency, we don't have to work on response, we don't have to work on humanitarian aspect, we don't have to work on fighting crisis day after day. We have to do the work to eliminate crisis, period.
As someone who advocates so hard for the rights of women, for Haiti itself, you obviously believe in, a better conditions for the country, a better future, despite the crisis and challenge that you're currently facing. For a very long time, media portrayals of Haiti have often focused on chaos, extreme poverty, and violence. And that's all you see of Haiti.
Mhm,
And, how can we shift narratives to center Haitian dignity, resistance, and solutions, especially from the perspective of women and grassroots communities who, as you said, are victims themselves, but who are still fighting against,
mhm.
the abuses that they're facing and abuses they're seeing in other people.
Each time I have to talk in a space and I have to write something, and at the end, this sentence, Asian women are not only victims, are not only survivors, we are also leaders. And Asian, I was saying, Pascal, you already said that the last time. Can you change? Can you say something differently this time? I said, no, 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 I have to remind them that I have to say that again. Maybe they don't listen the first time, you know. I'm trying to repeat that each time, each time. yes, we are victim of the crisis. Yeah, we are surviving the crisis every day, but we are more, more than that as Asian women. Um, the work we are doing in the crisis is really important. So the leadership role, the healing the community role, the all the work we are doing at the center of the crisis. I It's important for me to remind of people that we are not, and we don't want to play the role of victims every day. What we want people to understand that what we are, leaders, citizens, human beings, Asian women, what we are in our diversity, and to help us destroy this identity of victims. So help us, um, be in all these kind of beautiful things we already are. And with that, we can, eliminate this aspect of survivors, of victims, because we don't want to be in this continuity of surviving every day. The word resilient, we are resilient. We don't want to be that. We want to be happy. We want to be free. We want to be joyful. We want to be so many things. And we want to stop be associated to, they're surviving so much. We are so more than that. So yes, I think we are trying to work on the narratives. Um, in international media, national media, but sometimes you can feel guilty to not, you know, giving voices to so many women and girls suffering. Last year, I wrote, I think, 6 articles of women surviving gangs violence, sexual violence. And it was important for us because the experience we had in the past, they completely silenced the experience of women during the crisis. It was completely forgotten. And by example, the movie of Rachel Magwell, Les Enfants du Coup d'État in French, but how to say that? The Children of Coup d'État, I don't know. Um, it was stories of women pregnant from sexual violence, and how they have to deal with this consequence of sexual violence. And this is, something we use to make people understand that each time women and girls are victims when we are seeing this kind of crisis, it's not the first time, it's a pattern. So it's it's challenging to decide how it's important to give voices to the survivors, to help people not forgive their stories, their realities, but also not to be completely associated only to that. It's really challenging. And this is why, by example, Nègès Mawon, we have our festival. Last week, we have our, festival for 3 days, being in the streets, dancing, singing, and it's personal. Having this festival every year. Last year, we had it only online, but it's personal, that between the narrative about Maison Claireuse, the narrative about sisterhood program, the narrative about we need money for helping women, we have 3 days of festival. We have women um, marching together, dancing together, healing together, singing together, having fun together, creating together, doing theater together, reading together. It's personal to have this festival in this context because it's the goal. We are not only here to do this work, but we are only here also to say that women in Haiti, we are actors, we are writers, we are artists, we are all kind of things. We are creating every day. Even if we are in this context, we are creating every day. I want to say thank you to the committee that worked on the festival for 1 year. It's a committee of 5 or 6 wonderful members of Nègès Mawon. They work with more than 21 artists for 1 year to create this festival. And so yeah, we have so many events doing 3 days. Before it was 7 days of festival, but because of the crisis, we have to do only 3 days because we don't have enough money. But it's also difficult to mobilize people to go, So they worked for 1 year, especially
Wow.
Gaëlle Bien-Aimé. She's the artistic director of the organization. She's doing an amazing work. And I know how it is sometimes to just have a rehearsal with artists. When they're struggling, and you have to come today, we have to do this rehearsal, we have to work, we have to create together. So I know how it can be hard. So
Mm.
I want to say thank you to, more than 30 people that work for 1 year for this festival. So we are trying to balance what we are doing. The work we are doing for abortion, by example, is with Danta. It's, three artists on stage talking about abortion. We are creators at Nègès Mawon. We are artists and creators at Nègès Mawon. So we hope that it balance, the narrative about it's only poverty, it's only this, it's only violence, it's only crisis, it's only corruption, it's only this, it's only that. But when we are so when it's but this everyday struggle, sometimes it can be difficult, it can be difficult to have more narrative than the narrative of um surviving every day. But we are trying, and we hope that it will be enough one day, and we are trying to do our part. So we are grateful.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Expert Voices on Atrocity Prevention. If you enjoyed this episode, we encourage you to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, or Spotify, and we'd be grateful if you left us a review. For more information on the Global Center's work on R2P, mass atrocity prevention, and populations at risk of mass atrocities, visit our website at www.globalr2p.org and connect with us on Facebook, Blue Sky, or LinkedIn at GCR2P.